She called me selfish for not funding her honeymoon with my Chanel. My name is Jenna, and I've always been the kind of friend who overgave. The kind who lent dresses, money, even emotional energy I didn't have because I was raised to believe that being a good friend meant being available, selfless, and accommodating. Especially to women like Amber. Amber, my college roommate turned lifelong headache in designer heels. The kind of girl who didn't walk into a room, she arrived. Everything she touched became a performance. Including me. We were inseparable back then. Mostly because she didn't like walking into parties alone. And I didn't know I was the supporting act in someone else's story. After college, I clawed my way into a corporate job, built a life on my own terms. Amber floated. Between boyfriends, MLMs, astrology readings she tried to monetize. She never lasted more than a few months at any job, not when she could charm her way through life and land in someone else's safety net. And somehow I kept being that net. But the wedding? That was different. She FaceTimed me 3 months before it, eyeliner perfect, voice syrupy. Babe, I'm so excited, Bali. Can you believe it? It's going to be a soul-altering, goddess-centered celebration. Just me, Nate, and our tribe. Her tribe apparently included a bridesmaid financial contribution of $3,000. Flights, resort, ayahuasca ceremony, matching silk dresses. Oh, and the privilege of helping fund her spiritual honeymoon experience. I laughed. She didn't. You can afford it, she said, flipping her hair. You literally have like 10 grand in designer bags collecting dust. My jaw tightened. Those aren't disposable. Amber smirked. Come on, Jen. You've got a Chanel classic that could fund my entire honeymoon. Just one bag. Sell it. For the sake of sisterhood. I was silent. That bag was the first real gift I'd ever given myself. After my promotion. After clawing my way up in a male-dominated firm where I'd been told to smile more and stop being so intense. She noticed the pause. Oh my God. Are you serious? Her voice cracked. You're choosing a handbag over me? Over our friendship. And that's when she said it. That sentence that unpeeled years of resentment in one violent swoop. Real friends make sacrifices. I wish I could say I stood up for myself right then. But I didn't. I froze the way you do when someone walks across your boundaries wearing shoes you helped them pick out. Instead, I told her I'd think about it. And then I sat with the sickness in my stomach. I thought about every time I'd spotted a charge on my card after she borrowed it and forgot. Every time she needed a small favor that turned into unpaid labor. Every time she made me feel guilty for not bending just a little more. That night, I took out my bags. Not to list them, but to hold them. To remember. Each one marked a milestone, not a splurge. The Dior from my first bonus. The Fendi after I won a case no one thought I could. The Chanel? That was the one I bought when I left my gaslighting ex and walked into my new apartment with nothing but a key and a spine. They weren't accessories. They were armor. The next day I texted Amber one sentence. I won't be selling anything to fund your honeymoon. She replied immediately. Wow. So this is who you are now? Obsessed with things. No soul. Got it. And then she blocked me. Blocked. After 10 years of birthday texts and breakup nights and wine-fueled heart-to-hearts on the floor of my studio apartment. 2 weeks later, her GoFundMe dropped. Help Amber and Nate start their journey with a sacred, unforgettable honeymoon experience, it said. We're skipping the registry and asking for collective support. The comment section? Brutal. One woman posted, wait, didn't you tell your bridesmaid to sell a Chanel bag for you? Girl, no. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd asked. 2 other bridesmaids had quietly withdrawn. One had sold her car last year to cover medical debt. Amber still guilt her for not contributing to the bachelorette. And the trip? Never happened. They got married at the courthouse. She posted a photo with the caption, real love doesn't need luxuries. Maybe not. But real friendship doesn't demand them either. She called it healing, I called it manipulation. Amber didn't speak to me for weeks. But silence doesn't mean absence. Not with her. Her Instagram became a passive-aggressive shrine to letting go of toxic energy. Every post was a veiled dagger. If they don't clap when you win, they were never your friend. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your rebirth. I wasn't tagged. But I didn't need to be. Then came the texts. Not from her, from mutuals. Hey, did you and Amber have a falling out? She said you're going through a materialism phase. Are you okay? A materialism phase. As if reclaiming my boundaries was a fashion trend. And then her maid of honor, Lydia, messaged me. Just wanted you to know she's really hurt. She expected more from you. More. That word again. Amber always expected more. She just never gave it. A week later, I got the invite. Not to the wedding that had happened quietly at City Hall. No, this was to her reclamation ceremony. A post-wedding, all white, barefoot on the beach, sound bath lace gathering to release old ties and celebrate new beginnings. I stared at the email, my thumb hovering over the RSVP. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the one that still believed I owed her something, felt guilt creeping like smoke under a locked door. So I went. Not because I forgave her, but because I needed to see it for what it really was. I wore black. To her all-white spiritual closure ceremony. The moment I stepped onto the sand, heads turned. Amber blinked, then smiled too wide. Jen. You came, she breathed like she hadn't ghosted and smeared me for a month. You look so intense. I smiled back. I came to say goodbye. To the version of me who thought love meant overextending. To the woman who confused manipulation for loyalty. To Amber. She reached for a hug. I let her touch air. Thank you for the invite, I said gently. But I'm not staying. And I walked away. Back to my car. Back to my boundaries. Back to myself. She said I owed her loyalty, but what she meant was silence. It didn't end on the beach. That's the lie we tell ourselves, that walking away from people like Amber is clean. Final. That truth spoken once is enough to set you free. But Amber had one last tool in her arsenal, the group chat. A week after her reclamation, I was looped back in. A thread called The Sisterhood, filled with college friends, old bridesmaids, people I hadn't spoken to in years. And Amber, of course, leading the digital seance. She posted a screenshot, cropped, but I recognized it. My text. I won't be selling anything to fund your honeymoon. No context. No explanation. Just that line, hanging like an indictment. Amber followed it with a message. Some people only show up when it's convenient. I learned who my real sisters were this year. Then came the flood. Hearts, love you girl, you don't need negativity. Lydia chimed in, you've grown so much. Not everyone can keep up. It was a campaign. A curated public cleansing. And I was cast as the toxin. I left the thread. Quietly. No fireworks. Just one final swipe. But then one of them, Marissa, reached out privately. I didn't know the full story, she said. Amber made it sound like you refused to be there for her during a crisis. Crisis? Marissa sent me screenshots. Amber had said I'd abandoned her when she was dealing with a miscarriage scare. That I refused to help financially when she and Nate were staring down medical bills and spiritual devastation. None of it was true. I didn't even know she'd been pregnant. Or claimed to be. It clicked then. The urgency. The manipulation. The tears that never came when she talked about money but flowed freely in front of other people. Amber didn't need a friend, she needed a narrative. And I'd stopped playing my part. That weekend I sat down and wrote a message. Not to her, to everyone she'd poisoned. Amber and I have a long history. Some of it beautiful, some of it unhealthy. I'm not here to expose her or change your mind. But I won't let lies rewrite the past. I chose not to sell something meaningful to me to fund her wedding. That's it. There was no medical emergency, no betrayal. Just a woman asking too much and another woman finally saying no. I didn't wait for responses. I didn't need them. A few unfollowed me after that. One blocked me. Lydia sent a thumbs down emoji and then posted a TikTok about fake friends who can't handle your healing. But Marissa? She called me. And for the first time in years, someone asked, "Are you okay?" And meant it. We talked for hours. About college. About Amber. About how easy it is to confuse drama for intimacy when you're in your 20s. How we mistake volatility for loyalty. How some women build sisterhoods not on mutual respect, but on mutual silence. I told her the truth. I wasn't okay. I was grieving a friendship that had shaped me, even if it had hurt me. Do you miss her? She asked. Sometimes, I said. But mostly I miss who I thought she was. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about a bag. It was about the stories we're told as girls. That friendship means forgiveness without boundaries. That we owe our loyalty, even when it's used against us. But we don't. Not anymore. She said she was healing, but she came back sharper than ever. It started with the podcast. A friend texted me the link with 3 words. This is about you. Amber had launched a new series. Unfiltered with Amber Ray. The kind of name that screamed false intimacy and trademarked self-awareness. The episode was called The Betrayal That Saved Me. I clicked. Today, her voice oozed through my earbuds. I want to talk about the moment I realized not everyone who claps for you is cheering. Some are just waiting for you to fall. I didn't need to hear the rest. She was rewriting history again, but this time with a platform. The story she spun was masterful. A toxic friend. A luxury-obsessed narcissist. A woman who weaponized boundaries to mask her abandonment issues. Every detail felt vaguely familiar but twisted. Like someone describing your home using only shadows. I wanted to be above it. I wanted to delete the link, breathe, let it go. But it burrowed. Because I knew how Amber operated, with just enough ambiguity to keep people guessing, just enough polish to be untouchable. And it was working. Her follower count was climbing. The comments poured in. Preach. Been there. My ex-bestie was the same way. Amber didn't need to say my name. She made me the villain in 1,000 women's stories. Marissa called that night. You heard it. I heard it. You okay? No, I said. But I'm not surprised. I could have gone online, posted my side, defended myself. But something in me shifted. I was done fighting for space in someone else's narrative. So I wrote a different kind of post. It wasn't a rebuttal. It was a confession. Honest. Quiet. Raw. I used to think being chosen by loud people made me special. That love wrapped in chaos was more real. That sacrificing parts of myself made me loyal. It didn't. It made me invisible. I didn't name her. I didn't need to. By morning my DMs were full. Not with gossip but gratitude. Stories. Reflections. Women who had stayed too long, given too much, confused being needed with being valued. One message stood out. My sister sent me your post. I was in an Amber friendship for 5 years. Reading your words helped me leave. I sat with that message for a long time. Amber had her podcast. Her curated pain. Her spotlight. But I had something too. I had truth. And it was finally enough. She taught me how to set fires and I finally learned how to walk away from the smoke. Amber had always been dramatic. But this was different. After the podcast aired, I thought she'd move on. But a week later she started tagging me again, subtly, slyly. Not directly, of course. But in every healing infographic, in every what to do when your friend betrays your energy carousel. She posted an old photo of us from college. No caption. Just the location tag. Some scars have names. They got 100 comments in an hour. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to feed the algorithm or her martyr complex. But inside, I burned. So I did what I hadn't done in years. I went to therapy. I'd always brushed it off. Said I didn't have time. Said I journaled, which was basically the same. But after years of being the emotional janitor in my friendships, I needed a place to unpack the mess I hadn't made. Her name was Dr. Layla Farrow. 40-something, sharp as a scalpel, and allergic to bullshit. The first thing she asked me was this. What's the worst thing Amber ever made you believe about yourself? I stared at the ceiling for a long time. That I owed people everything I had just because they were sad. She nodded. That's not friendship. That's emotional colonization. I laughed then cried. In the next few sessions we went deeper. Into my patterns. Into my childhood. Into the way my mother's love felt conditional and how Amber's affection mimicked that same sharp sweetness, praise that only lasted if I stayed small. She didn't love you, Layla said one session. She consumed you. I left shaking. Because I knew she was right. Amber had taught me how to set fires, how to light drama, how to survive on adrenaline and chaos. And for a long time I thought that was passion. Loyalty. Love. But it was just smoke. And for the first time I could finally see through it. I took a week off work. Not to escape. To rebuild. I muted Amber on all platforms. Changed the locks on the digital doors she'd been using to slip back in. Then I sold one of my bags. Not the Chanel. A YSL clutch I'd bought after a particularly soul-crushing breakup. One I didn't even like that much. With the money, I booked a solo trip to Lisbon. Not to run, but to breathe. And somewhere between the cobblestones and the custard tarts, I remembered something important. I am not selfish for keeping what's mine. Not bitter for walking away. Not cruel for choosing peace over performance. I'm just finally free. She said it was over, but her mother had other plans. I came back from Lisbon with salt in my hair and silence in my phone. And then her mother called. Deborah always had that voice, smooth, like lacquer over rotting wood. She's unraveling, she said. Not sleeping. Not eating. She needs grounding. I was supposed to be the grounding. We met at a cafe. She wore a perfect beige trench. I wore armor invisible to her boundaries. She misses you, she offered. I stirred my tea. She misses control. Deborah didn't argue. She doesn't know how to exist without someone to blame, she said. That part felt honest. But honesty wasn't why she came. She slid a velvet box across the table. Inside, the earrings I'd loaned Amber 5 years ago. Diamond studs. A gift from my father before he died. She said you should have these back. That's when I knew it was really over. And for once I didn't feel gutted. I felt clean. She vanished from my life, but I still saw her everywhere. She was gone, but her absence lingered like a perfume I didn't wear anymore, faint, but impossible to ignore. I'd pass a woman in heels at Whole Foods and my spine would stiffen. I'd hear a playlist from our college days, Lana, Florence, early Adele, and my chest would tighten. Not with grief. With muscle memory. For months I'd lived inside a silence that wasn't mine. The kind Amber designed. The kind that made people wonder what you did wrong. But now the silence was mine. I took long walks without checking my phone. I said no without writing an apology first. I saw my therapist every Tuesday and no longer flinched at the word boundary. Still, she haunted the edges. One night, I ran into Lydia. We were both at a mutual friend's gallery opening. She looked surprised to see me, maybe even nervous. Jenna, she said, eyes wide. You look different. I am. She hesitated. Amber's in Arizona now. Some spiritual retreat. Says she's reinventing herself. Of course she was. Lydia shifted. She says she's forgiven everything. That she's, like, energetically clean. I smiled. Good for her. But forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia. That night, I walked home in the cold, thinking about how much energy I'd spent bracing for her reappearance. Bracing for the next invasion. The next narrative. But none came. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I found something I hadn't known I'd lost. My voice. Not the one that had to explain itself. Or defend. Or shrink. The one that laughed at my own jokes again. That filled a room just because it wanted to. One morning I put on the Chanel bag. Not for an occasion. Just because. I walked past the mirror and caught my reflection. Still me. But finally only me. She rebuilt her image and I reclaimed my story. It happened slowly like fog burning off a windshield. I started writing publicly. Not about her. About me. About the silent violence of friendships built on performance. About the slow erosion of self when you're always the supporting role. About how recovery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just waking up without dread. My essays caught attention. Small at first. A women's collective reached out. Then a podcast. Then a publisher. One night, I spoke at a local event. The theme was reinvention. I stood on that stage, palms sweating, heart rattling like old blinds in a storm, and told my story. No names. No revenge. Just truth. Afterward, a woman waited by the back door. She looked young. Tired. Hollow-eyed in a way I recognized. I left a friendship like that last year, she said. I thought I was crazy. But hearing you, I feel less alone. I hugged her. Not because I had the answers, but because I knew what it meant to finally be seen. A week later, I got an email. Subject line, podcast interview request, unfiltered with Amber Ray. No message. Just the invitation. I stared at it. Laughed. Then clicked decline. Because I didn't need her microphone. I had my own voice now. And I wasn't giving it back. She wanted closure, but I'd already closed the door. It came on a Wednesday. A knock. Soft but deliberate. I opened my apartment door to find her standing there, windblown, smaller than I remembered. No lashes. No statement jewelry. Just Amber. Rah. Hey, she said. I said nothing. I was in the city. I thought maybe we could talk. I stared at her. The part of me that once would have melted, the girl who defaulted to yes, didn't show up. What would we talk about? I asked. She shifted. Everything. Nothing. I don't know. I've changed. She looked down. You did too. We stood there like strangers who shared a dream once and forgot how it ended. I'm not angry, I said. I know, she whispered. That's the worst part. You're not anything. I let the silence hang. Closure, she said finally. That's what I wanted. I nodded. I already have it. She blinked as if she hadn't prepared for that answer. I didn't invite her in. We said goodbye with our eyes. And I shut the door gently. Not to hurt her, but because I finally could.